Hola, welcome to my review video of the 2022 Mexico City Grand Prix. So, this race had a few interesting points, I thought. More to do with performance of the cars, I would say relative performance of the cars, than action on track. We didn't get a huge amount of action on track with this one. I hate to describe it as a boring race because there's always something interesting happening in an F1 race for the hardcore fan. There's always interesting stuff happening. Just sometimes you have to look a little bit harder to find it, and this was one of those races where you had to look harder, but it's all good. One interesting thing about this weekend, in my opinion, was that Ferrari and Mercedes seem to have swapped places, more or less, from the way they were for a big part of this season. Not the beginning of the season when Ferrari were clearly dominant, but from a few races in, basically, when Red Bull first established the upper hand, Ferrari were very close to them, and Mercedes were the third best team. This weekend clearly had a complete flip-flop around of that. So basically we had Mercedes pushing Red Bull as hard as they could, and Ferrari just, to be honest, miles behind. Certainly the way that certainly by their standards this season, miles behind. Now, I don't know whether it was something to do with the altitude, which obviously is a huge feature of Mexico City, always leads to the Grand Prix here being a little bit different, and the performance of the cars being adversely affected by the altitude, and that impacting on the race, the performance of the cars being different from usual, relative to each other, which happens a lot here. So I'm thinking the altitude certainly impacted Ferrari's performance. Do I think it was solely responsible for Ferrari's lack of performance this weekend? No, I think it was probably a number of different factors, but certainly Ferrari really one ironic thing about Ferrari's performance this weekend, seemingly, certainly according to Charles Leclerc in his post-race interview, which was quite worrying from a performance point of view for Ferrari fans, I would say. He said that they got everything right. This was probably the first, in my opinion, I think this is probably the first one of the first races all season where they got everything right, and they were so far off the pace. That was ironic when they've had so many mess-ups this season and lost so many points through mechanical failures, spins, crashes, pit stop mess-ups. So for them to get everything right and only manage to finish 5th and 6th, miles behind, pretty much a minute behind Max. That's really worrying for Ferrari. I don't think it's a permanent thing. I think that this is probably this Grand Prix will have been a blip for them in that respect, but certainly it's just another symptom, I would say, of a terrible season for them and a massive missed opportunity for all season, basically, for Ferrari. Disaster for them performance-wise this weekend. But Mercedes and Ferrari definitely swapping places. Mercedes getting stronger and stronger as they've had a tendency to do in recent years. During the season, they've always tended to end the season strongly, so they've been massively impressive. Ferrari, I'd say not. Congratulations to Max Verstappen, another brilliant race win, breaking the record for the most race wins in a season. Obviously, even though there's more races every year these days than what there used to be, still massively impressive achievement. I remember vividly back in 2004, the Japanese Grand Prix in 2004, when Michael Schumacher set the record for 13 race wins in a season. So obviously that's ironically, back then Red Bull didn't exist. Red Bull, it was still Jaguar at that point, and Red Bull were just about to buy Jaguar. Just about another 2 or 3 months later, Red Bull ended up buying Jaguar, and then made the Red Bull team, which obviously now just celebrated their highest number of race wins in a season. So, nice little sync there, possibly. But yeah, this is something which doesn't happen very often. Obviously, the number of race wins in a season being record for race wins in a season being broken. So really well done, Max Verstappen, for that. That's awesome. Awesome achievement. There's an interesting situation with tyres this race, I think. Performance of the different tyres. Clearly the hard tyre was not hopeless in terms of performance, but very, very, let's say, lethargic. Might be a appropriate word to describe it in terms of performance. The Mercedes drivers obviously just couldn't wake their tyres up properly at all, and we're still waiting for those tyres to come to life by the end of the race. Red Bull made better use, I would say, of the mediums. Mercedes missed an opportunity, not the drivers, but the team missed an opportunity to do something different with the tires. They could have tried soft tires, and I think that could have made a much bigger difference with the tire deg being so low relative to expectations on the Hermanos Rodriguez circuit this weekend. I would say that I think it would have been worth taking a gamble on these on soft tires rather than going with hard tires, because those just ended up being ridiculously slow. So interesting situation with tires. Softer tires, I think, would have made for a more interesting race amongst some of the front runners. So tires, I would say, played a bigger part in, had not even played a bigger part, but probably had a bigger effect on this race than or had the potential to have a bigger effect than what they usually do. Pierre Gasly made an interesting move on Lance Stroll early on in the race. I would say that was a good entertaining move. I think that the penalty that he got for it was justified. I tend to agree with Martin Brundle that he might have got a slightly harsher penalty. The stewards were maybe on a little bit nice to him for it, but it was still good in that it made something happen. It gave us something to speak about early on in the race, and then later on in the race as well, he was doing some good passing moves. So I'd say that another decent, lively performance from Pierre Gasly, I would say, at least, and even if it didn't produce a spectacular result in terms of points. Daniel Ricciardo did a brilliant drive. I thought he really brought the race alive towards the end of the race, if not for obviously for the front the front few positions. He was a little bit further back, obviously, but he did a brilliant job to pass so many cars and also pull far enough away to cancel out his 10-second penalty for crashing into Yuki Tsunoda. I felt like he was channeling driving a McLaren in Mexico and putting on this amazing charge, passing so many cars towards the end of the race. Felt like he was channeling Gerhard Berger from 1990 a little bit, crashing into somebody and overtaking lots of other cars as well. I thought that was quite a little bit of a parallel there. But it was great to see Daniel Ricciardo driving like he hasn't driven probably all season, and probably, I would say, not since he won the Italian Grand Prix in 2021. I'd say he drove brilliantly, and it was great to have him back, even for just part of a race, and shows us fans what we'll be missing next year without him on the grid, seemingly. So hopefully he will only be taking a break for a year and then coming back in 2024, because I think that he's just too good a driver to lose at this stage when he's still got years ahead of him to do more brilliant performances, get great results, and win races, and even be a title contender if he had the right car, just like he was during his time at Red Bull. So yeah, I would say that it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch Daniel Ricciardo doing an amazing drive today. I think the way this race ended was so similar to last year's Mexican Grand Prix. It was quite unreal. Not only the same first three in the same order, but even the same kind of gaps between them, basically. So it was great to see Lewis Hamilton doing another really strong performance. Typical Lewis, pushing all the way through the race, never giving up, and managing to collect another second place there's still, I'd say, an opportunity, certainly in Brazil, for him to win a race before the end of the year. I think that it was a shame that Sergio Perez didn't finish higher up, because it's always great to see Checo do well in Mexico, and I would really, really love to see Checo win a race in Mexico. That would be just amazing. It would be one of the most beautiful things to see as an F1 fan. So I'm really hoping that next year, or one of the years coming up, that that he can win the Mexican Grand Prix, because that would just be amazing. So yeah, pretty kind of predictable race towards the end, really. Okay, so this has been a different style of video that I've made this time. For the United States Grand Prix last week, I tried making my video in one long take, which was kind of a little bit more difficult. I found more difficult to do, and it was probably also less watchable, because I was trying to remember everything about the race which I wanted to speak about all in real time, and was trying to struggle to do that with trying to deal with memory fade and various other things, that thought processes that I was having at the time. And it was all in one long take, and probably kind of messy. So this time I've tried filming the video in a series of short clips, which I wanted to fit each little topic within the race that I wanted to speak about into one clip, and film them one by one, and then edit them together. So obviously the video will feature a series of short clips, videos within the video, so to speak, and that's probably the way I'll be making the videos going forward. I think that probably makes more sense to do it that way, because that way the videos are more succinct, more concise, and hopefully more watchable too. So certainly this channel is a work in progress, so that's probably that's one way that I'm learning as I go, probably to hopefully make better videos. So yeah, that's the way that I've made the video for this race review. Hope you've liked it. Overall, this wasn't the most exciting or eventful Grand Prix we've seen in Mexico City, but I still really enjoyed it. I really look forward to this race every year. It's one of my favourite races. Mexico is one of my favourite countries. So, it was still a highlight of my year as a Formula One fan, and I'm also really happy and really excited that this race is going to be on the calendar for at least 3 more years. Hopefully much longer after that as well too. Viva Mexico! So this has been my review video for the 2022 Mexico City Grand Prix. If you like what you've seen here, feel free to like this video. If you have anything to add to the discussion, feel free to comment. If you like my content, then please subscribe to my channel. Okay, see you at the next one.